Hello, Kelly here with Kelly's Soroka Life, and I'm here with our next class in Lessons from Lenormand. So class one was just an introduction and to let you know what things that I was going to be using and give you the schedule and help you to kind of get started if you want to follow along with the book and getting a deck and or making your own deck. So you can go back, I'll link that video and you can go back and watch the introduction if you want to for class one. But for class two, I'm going to go into the introduction. This is the book that I am using. This is the Essential Lenormand by Rana George. And this is, I've kind of broken down the book into parts. And so we're kind of be skipping around a little bit in the book, but then we'll go through the cards and together and we'll group the cards together and then do some drills and practices that are towards the back of the book. So we'll skip around a little bit, but this is the book that I'm going to be using. And you don't have to buy the book. You can if you want to. You can just listen as I go through for the lessons and just follow along as you want to follow along. But for in the first class, I asked or told you that we were going to in class two, look in the book and read the book and the introduction and part one of the book. And it's not that long. And if you are following along the book and you've read that, then these are just some kind of highlights from it. If you didn't, I have some slides and you can follow along as I kind of point out some of the things in the book and some of the things that will be going over in the class. So let me share the slides that I have. And present. Oh, here it is, present. Okay. So here we go, Lessons from Lenormand Class 2. So here is the schedule, and I will have this schedule and all the things that I talked about in class one in a link for you so you can download that. And it has the schedule, it has the resources, and it has a place for you to journal. So you can take notes as we go along. So then in this is class two. So we're going over the book and the introduction and part one in the book. And these were just some things that I got out of the introduction that I thought were interesting and things that we're going to touch on later on, but it gives you kind of a background of Lenormand and the cards and why it's interesting, I think, today. So Lenormand is the cards are smaller, and you can see that this is one of the decks that I'm going to be using. This is the Sweet Blossom Lenormand, and you can see that it's smaller. And this one also, this is Rana George's own deck. And so you can see that this one has the playing card inserts in it, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But they are smaller. So that is, and I will show you, I know it's hard to see in this kind of a little area, but I'll show you. This is kind of a tarot deck size, and this is the Lenormand size. So you can see now how much smaller it is. Now there are Lenormand decks that are bigger. There are some that are smaller than that. And there are some that are, different sizes. Like I have one that is a hexagon shape, which is really fun to use. And I have one that I just got, the Gasland Lenormand, that is the shape of a coffin, which I think is going to be really cute to use this time of year. But there are, people have done, and there are the small tiles that you can buy, and they're just, just small tiles. But it is a deck, and it's 36 cards, and that is the standard, the 36 cards. Just like tarot has a standard of 78 cards. And the smaller cards, the 36 cards, you will find decks that have more than 36 cards. but any of those are extras that the person has put in. So anything that is 37 or 38 or numbered higher are ones that the author or creator has created for that deck. And you all will also find decks that have more than 36 cards because they have alternate cards. So you might have the man and the woman. You might have gentleman and lady, and you might have two gentlemen and two ladies, or you might have, a set of querent one, querent two, and then another set that's one and two, and you can mix and match those together. And so, and some of them will have, alternate cards for just ones that they felt like the creator felt like they wanted to add something new. So you might have a ship card that is very traditional looking, and you might have one that the creator put in that is more modern looking, or something like that. And you'll see there's a few cards that will have different names to it. Like the crossroads will be roads, or the crossing, or paths, or something like that. So there is a little bit of play within the cards. So, and we'll talk about this in a minute, about consistency and how to use that. But I just wanted to mention that as we're talking about the 36 card. So Lenormand came from Europe in the 1800s. It uses symbols on it, and symbols, we've been using symbols for communication, and for divination, and for prediction, and for record keeping. It's as old as humanity is. And so the symbols in the Norman deck really, tap into that collective consciousness, and it activates your unconscious to get these messages and these symbols. Now, the deck was not created by Mademoiselle Lenormand, but it was named after her. And she was in the 1800s. She was a very famous diviner, and I believe she did a lot of prediction, astrology, tea reading. But there is a lot of information about her in the end of the book, and so you can look at that. Then some of the cards, again, like I said, like Rana George's deck, have the playing card inserts. So you'll see here that there is, up in the corner, up in the top, there is an image from a playing card. Like this one is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of hearts. And so you'll see that, and that is just an old association, because the cards came from playing cards, and kind of that whole line of using cards and playing aspects. And then, just like tarot became a divination device and tool, so did Lenormand. And so it comes with those, and that is something, kind of a layer that we'll talk about later. And then the cards form a sentence. So as you are laying out your cards, and as we learn each card, and we're going to start with the first 6 cards next time, then as you learn, you can lay out the cards and use your own keywords to make a sentence. And from that sentence, you get a message. And the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. And so, and each card has the associated keywords, and we're going to look at some that Rana George has in her book. And we're also going to make our own keywords too. So you can start looking at your own keywords and bringing in the meanings that are important to you. The numbers are important. And so you will see on the cards, most cards have, like this one has a number up in the corner. You can see the number, kind of see the number there. But and Rana George's deck has the number up here as well. So get it in the picture. So there is the number there. Most of them will have the number and the picture at a very minimum. And for your first deck, I would suggest you get something that has the number, has the symbol, symbols that you like and that you want to work with, and the title, because some decks do not have the title on it. And most of the time it's pretty clear what it is, but I have worked with decks that don't have the titles on them. And and sometimes it is, and if they're more kind of more like artistic decks, they sometimes are hard to tell apart. So, get something and so that you can see the numbers and you can see what the card title is. You can make your own with playing cards. And in the book, you'll find out how to do that. And you take the playing cards and you take out a certain number of them to get it down to 36. And then you can write your own title on it. So, or you can make your own cards with cardstock, just, 36 pieces of something, and you can use it and make your own cards because you just need the number. You can draw your own symbol or print out a symbol and then put the title on it. And one of the points that Rana puts in this book is that Lenormand is clear, it's predictive, and it's direct. And so with some practice, you can get very clear, very predictive, and very direct readings. And I definitely can attest to that because whenever I use Lenormand, it's always clear. I have used it for prediction and it's very direct, and I get just excellent messages. So in the introduction, she lists 4 benefits of reading Lenormand, and I just want to put those in here because I think it is important. Why learn a new system of divination? And so one is to sharpen your intuition, and using a different way or using any way of divining is going to sharpen your intuition. But Lenormand is going to do that as well. It enhances your level of confidence and self-esteem. The more you read, the more that you get messages, valuable messages, and you're going to up your confidence and up your self-esteem. You can get glimpses of the future to better prepare because we know that things are not always sunshine and roses, that there are things that are going to happen. There are things that are going to upset our equilibrium. There are bad things that are going to happen. But knowing about it and seeing that something might come up, you can or will come up, you can prepare for it. It's just like astrology, looking at astrology, looking at things that are coming up that might not be, the best aspect or the best transit or something like that. You can see that and you can say, oh, well, I know that this is, might cause some problems, that, I might feel down or I might feel argumentative or I might, something like that. Then you can prepare for it and you can be better prepared. And that is definitely one of the things that I do, especially when I have done grand tableaus in the past, is just looking at a month ahead. What is going to be important? What do I need to focus on? Do I need to focus on my finances? Do I need to focus on my business? Do I need to focus on my relationship? Do I need to focus on my house? Do I need to focus on my children? Do I need to, those kinds of things? And looking at that and seeing what that focus is really good and helps you prepare. But it also helps you prepare and knowing that something might be hard and you can prepare for it. And then Lenormand is also, so looking at those, that grand tableau, looking at because it is big and it's a lot of cards, and you can prepare for the future, but you can also lay out, 3 cards, 5 cards. My favorite is 9 cards to get a quick guide and quick counsel in something. You're looking at a situation and you're just at that point, and this is usually where I go to the Lenormand and I just don't know what to do. I just do not have an answer. I don't know what to do in this situation. And it always gives me something to look forward to. I might not like the answer and it might not necessarily be what I want to hear, but I can deal with it. And I'll be like, I know this is coming out and I can deal with it. So then moving on to part 1, and this is part 1 in the book, and it's pretty short. And I just wanted to touch on a few things in part 1. Here, approaching the Lenormand cards. So finding your deck, and we've talked a little bit about this, but her her advice in this part one is to find a deck that's a simple deck with basic symbols to begin. And that's what I like about this Sweet Blossoms Lenormand. It's not as simple as some decks. I mean, there's some decks that are just like this, and they'll just have a ring in the middle. And this will be number 25, and it'll have ring on it, and it'll just have a ring in the middle. And you can definitely find those. But this one is just, decorated enough that it's not boring, and it's really fun to look at and to use. Um, as compared to, you can see, let me see if I can find the ring in George's deck. So the ring looks like, I should pull this out. Okay. The ring, well, it's kind of plain too, but you can see there is a lot more to the ring on this one. It's got, the outline or the border around it. It's got a mat in the bottom. It's got some mountains in the background, and so it's a little bit more. And it's got the playing cards on it, so it's a little bit more decorated, and it's um, a little bit more to it. So, but you can see the differences, and you can find one that really. But start with a simpler one at first, and then it can work up to ones that you really like, because there's lots now that have themes. Like I have an herbs and a plants. I think it's herbs and flowers Lenormand, and one that's the Celtic Lenormand and fairy tale. So there's lots of different ones out there that are more creative and more artistic. But start with one, because you want to learn the symbols first, and you want to learn the words, and you want to learn the keywords. So then when you start with a reading, and her suggestion is to start with a clear head and a specific question. And that is really good. Clear, you want your question to have a clear aim, and you want context for useful insight. And then answer only that question. So whatever it is, if you're asking about a relationship, a specific relationship with a specific person, and you're not sure, say your boss is getting ready to hire a new coworker, and you think, well, I want to know a little bit about this coworker and get a little bit of insight on it. And so you can do that and say, what do I need to know about my relationship with this new coworker, at work, as this person, comes into work, and, give it a kind of a time frame, the first month, or the first 30 days, or the first, couple of months, or something like that. Because as she says, time is elusive, and it's really hard to put out in the cards and know specifically how long this is going to be. Now, some people do, just like with tarot, have ways that they use time in the cards, and they'll look at a card, and certain cards will mean certain time periods, and as you study more, you'll see that as well. But for now, to learn the cards, narrow it to a season, just like with the question about a coworker, the first 30 days, or the first quarter, or something like that, so that you have a time season. And I do that a lot of times. If I'm just doing a grand tableau, I will ask about a specific season. Is it going to be, the next month? Is it going to be, like, I might do one now and say, what do I need to know between, the last quarter of the year, or something like that, so that it has a time season. And then consistency. And this is consistency in how you read, and how you read the cards, and the keywords that you use, because there's lots of different ways and lots of different systems that you can read about and find out about with Lenormand, just like with any other divination practice that you use. There's different ways that you can read the cards, different ways that you can interpret it, different ways that you can use spreads. So use consistency, and we'll talk about that as we go along and start doing our own keywords for the cards and start doing some readings with the cards and combination drills and things like that so that you're consistent. And that's really important. And then the last part of approaching the Lenormand cards is journal. And her advice here is to journal. Write down the cards and write down the readings, write down your keywords. And as you practice, 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 and predict, 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 you have the journal of all of these things that you've done. And you can go back and look at the very first ones, the first readings that you did, look at the very first predictions that you made and predict things like, and her advice in the book, and I think this is really fun too, predict things like when you're watching a TV show and you are thinking, what is this character's true motivation? Lay out some cards, let the cards tell you. So practice, 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 and predict, predict, predict. It's just, doing it over and over and over again is going to, again, raise your confidence, raise your self-esteem, and let you really enjoy Lenormand. Now, there are ways that you can, and we'll get into this more as we get into the more meanings of the cards, but you can use specific cards as significators. Now, most people read with the man or the woman or the gentleman and lady as the significators, and they pick one to be the question, the querent, and they pick one to be the partner. And so, and it can apply to anything. A lot of times I use the man and the woman. So I'm the woman and my husband is the man. And so I'm doing a reading, maybe looking ahead. And if it's a grand tableau, I look where I am, I look where he is. And so you can see those kinds of things. If we were doing it for the coworker, we might lay it out and look at the woman. If it were a woman asking, I would have the woman as her and the man as the coworker, no matter who the coworker was. And so you can just say that is the other person. And that's why a lot of decks now will have just querents that you can use, querent one, querent two, so that you can really be flexible in that. So choose how you want to use your significator and, just be open-minded in it and just know that you can substitute it, you can use it however you want to use it. Oh, you can have a focus card. So if you were asking about a relationship for your workplace, you might use the moon card because it has to do with reputation, and your reputation is very important in your workplace. People think of their reputation in their workplace. You could use the bear as a leadership, and so somebody in the leadership is hiring somebody, so you might want to use that card as a focus. So there's different ways that you can do that. And so she calls it activating the focus card in the reading. So you would choose that card and activate it as your focus card and then center the reading around it. Or you can just allow the focus to come through intuitively. And I will do that a lot of times if I'm just doing a reading about, and I have a question and I'll just pull draw, or print out 9 cards, then whatever that one in it is it's 3 by 3. So 3 on top, 3 in the middle, and 3 on the bottom. So I will look at what card came out in the middle and know that is my focus, and see if the lady came and is in it, then I know that it's very important, to me. The man came in it, I might think about that, who is my partner that I'm asking about. Is it a friend? Is it a child? Is it something like that? Well, there is a child card, so if I might use the child card if I were reading, about one of my children. So you could do that too. Or you can do and practice. And her suggestion is to practice both ways and see which one you like to use the best. So lastly, and I got this quote from the book, reading cards empowers people. It is a transformative tool. And it is definitely an empowering tool. It's a way to transform your life day by day, little bit by little bit. And because it empowers you every time you do a reading, every time you predict, every time you share the cards with other people, it's bringing transformation into the world. Now, these are the questions that I left you for last time. And so if you did these, great. If you didn't, you could go back. There will be, I think they're on the printout. If they're not, I'll put them in the description box here. And you can answer these questions. You can even pull, some other kinds of cards. And if you're new to Lenormand, you might want to draw a tarot card and give you some insight into it, or an oracle card. But these are mostly just for you to just kind of think about, what is Lenormand to you? What tools and practices do you currently use for divination? How do you hope to use Lenormand for yourself and for others? What do you already know about Lenormand? And what is the one question you hope will be answered for you during this course? And if you have a question, if you have something that comes up for you, put it in the comments, and I'll be glad to answer that in the next class, or let you know when that might be coming up in the class. So that is it for class 2 and the book with the introduction and part 1. And you can go back and read it. If you've got the book, you can go back and read those sections. You can go back with these sides and get the information from there. But then the schedule and the journal pages will be there for you to also download as well. So for class 3, we're going to start with the first 6 cards. So we're going to do number 1, Rider, number 2, Clover, number 3, Ship, number 4, House, number 5, Tree, and 6, Clouds. And so learning the numbers is important. And so start kind of, getting yourself used to, Rider. And what number is Rider? Rider's 1. What number is Clover? Number's 2. Number is Ship. Ship is 3. And so get to kind of get used to that, because when you do a grand tableau and you have the cards laid out, each card you might have each card in the grand tableau corresponds to that number. So the first card is in the first house, and each one, there's 36 houses, of course, because there's 36 cards, and it goes from 1 to 36. And so, that the first card that you draw, say that you draw Ring, and as the first card in the grand tableau. So Ring is going to be in that first house of Rider. So you have Ring in the house of Rider. And that, don't worry about that until we get later on in the grand tableau. But if you start doing that, then you can kind of see the cards and start associating it with one. And you can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you might get to cloud, 11. What is 11? That, and so what card that is in that house, and it'll make more sense as it goes along. I think that's one of the most confusing things, and that's why the reason I almost quit Lenormand is because the grand tableau, I just don't get it. But as I worked with it more and more, then it made a lot more sense. So we're going to do that so you can read, and that is on page, and that starts, I should have put the page number on here, but you can follow along in the book. That starts in part 2, a closer look at the 36 cards. So you can read the introduction, which starts on page 27. And then we're going to go through card 6, which is Clouds. And I'll put this in the description as well. So we're going to go through Clouds, which is on goes through page 69. So it's pages 27 to 69 is each one of the cards. And my suggestion is to take, because it'll be probably, at least a week before I get up to class 3. So it'll give you at least one day or more to read about the card and, do some practice with just that card. So you can read the card, read what she has to say about it, make your own keywords, and kind of just kind of reflect on the card. What do you think about it? And then on pages 262 to 269, there are some combination drill exercises. So this is your first kind of look at putting cards together. And that's how you start. You start putting cards together little by little, and just putting them together, seeing how they work together. And she gives you some examples and how to do that. And the easiest way is just to start with the keywords and start with writer. So you might have writer, and this might be message and or news. So you'll have news, and then you might have um, clouds, which is something clouds, which is doubt. And so you have a message of doubt, and so you'll put those together. How do they work? Like this. How do they work in other ways? Make sure that you're reading, right to left, and be consistent in that. And she'll tell you, and she explains all of this to you, and we'll do some and just do some of those. And you can, feel free to use just these cards that we've gone over, the first 6 cards, or you can start using the rest of the deck, and just looking up what those pick two, and then just look up the meanings and look up the keywords, and then put those keywords together. And again, she gives you great examples and ways that you to do this, and then we'll do some together, and I'll give you some ways that you can do this and have some fun with it. So that is it for class 2. So again, I'll have all of the information down in the description box. And if there's any questions that you have, feel free to leave a question in the comments, and I'll, get back to you. And anything that you might want to be covered in later lessons, I'll definitely do that. But it will probably be at least a week or more, probably, closer to a week and a half or so before I get up class 3 with the first 6 cards. So, take your time, work with the cards, practice with the cards, and have fun with it. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to memorize. Just work with the cards, have fun with it, practice, predict, and just have fun. So thank you for being here in class 2 of Lessons from Lenormand, and I will see you again in class 3. Bye.